Greetings, YouTubers and live videoers. It's me, Wayman29. Came on and logged into my Yahoo account, and then came over to YouTube. Sounds like I'm advertising. And I got an invite from Tic-Toc Ministries. I'm not sure how this involves me. Maybe they ran a search on Psalms and decided to invite me. I've done some videos on religion and the like. However, I find this ministry somewhat annoying. I was going to say extremely annoying, but they're very good at what they do. I mean, here you got, rather attractive lady sitting behind a microphone with a little index card, quoting scripture, as evangelicals would. Seems to be pretty conservative, but this title really bothered me because it's really funny, the text that they chose for this, and it's almost, they have no idea what they're reading, and it's most frustrating. So I'm gonna take, this lady has nothing to do with it. She's just doing her job. She's on there. It's a very good video. She's pretty. Blah blah blah. However, witches unaware, black magic in the church. And she uses the text Ezekiel 13:20 to 23. Then she bounces back and uses Ezekiel 8:7 to 13. So obviously she doesn't know the background on what she's reading. It's not like it's my job to tell her. They'll keep doing what they're doing. However, I just wanted to explain, because this stuff just gets me all riled up. And I'll get to why that is. She goes on in her video to explain that about false prophets and black magic in the church, and how it's being practiced and we don't even know it, and it's disguised to bring people in. This isn't an old thing. Well, just let me get going here. First of all, she talks about how Ezekiel gives his prophecy to the teachers in the temple. This is to the temple. However, during the Babylonian period, the temple of Jerusalem's destroyed. Ezekiel sent to these people to try to knit together and keep together, and to keep the people from assimilation into the Babylonian religion. That's what was going on here. And the false prophets he's talking about are people who run around saying everything's going to be okay, don't have to worry about a thing, and people who run around and perform miracles and stuff in order to keep the people blind to what's really going on. This happens today all the time. And I'm just gonna burrow through this here. She talks about, first of all, we'll go to the earliest one. The text, Ezekiel 8 to 11 is all one thing. 8, Ezekiel lays down the charges about what the problem is. 9, he gives out the sentence, and 10, he ends up discussing issues and God's issues on their punishment. And 11, it talks about the redemption or the renewal of the temple. And he goes through, and this is the part where Ezekiel's taken up by his hair, which is interesting also, because where did we get that before? Enkidu. Enkidu's taken up by his hair in Babylonian and Mesopotamian mythology. So, that's in here. So, she reads the verses backwards. She doesn't read it in order. They dig through the wall first. if you watch, don't waste the whole 24 minutes. Just watch the first 15, maybe even 10. Then he said to me, this is verse 8. Then he said to me, this is Ezekiel talking about Yahweh talking to him. And Ezekiel was, throughout his visions, he's always told to do certain things and make little plays and things. And it was very stressful for Ezekiel to do all these things. And it's very taxing as prophet to Yahweh because of the type of person he was and demands that he placed on the prophets. It was like a lifelong, exhausting thing. One reason why Jonah ran away. Didn't want to deal with it. So, verse 8. Then he said to me, mortal, dig through the wall. And I dug through the wall, and there was an entrance. And he said to me, go in and see the vile abominations that they are committing there. So I went in and I looked. There, portrayed on the wall all around, are all kinds of creeping things and loathsome animals, and all the idols of the house of Israel. So these animals and stuff were all into the walls that the Temple of Solomon built. These weren't nothing new. What the Babylonians came in and destroyed were already in place before it was destroyed. It already existed in the Temple of Solomon. Before them stood 70 elders of the house of Israel, and blah blah blah. Each had a censer in his hand and a fragrant cloud of incense. So they're giving incense to the gods. Then he said to me, mortal, have you seen what the elders in the house of Israel are doing in the dark of each room of images? For they say the Lord does not see us. The Lord has forsaken the land. Of course they're going to say that. Because they're saying, well, we might as well assimilate. Our temple's gone. Just like Moses going up to Sinai to talk to Yahweh. Doesn't come back. People get all upset. Well, where is the God? They need to see some. Aaron builds the calf. Says, oh, Israel, here is your God. Then you have the big deal. So this is like that. They're all disillusioned. So, he said unto me also, you will see a still greater sin and abominations. So then they go to the north gate of the house of the Lord. This is a vision. It's not in the real temple. Women were sitting there weeping for Tamazu, which he's a god of the Babylonians who went to the underworld during winter, came back in the spring, and it was a ritual that they would weep. There's more on that. Tamazu was also connected to in Adapa, the food of life, and if you look that up, he had something to do with shepherding, and if you compare that to Christ, it's an amazing comparison. Then he said to me, here you seen this, O mortal, you will see still greater abomination than these. Okay, so he brings us into the inner court of the house of the Lord. At the entrance of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, there are about 25 men with their backs to the temple of the Lord, and their faces towards the east, prostrating themselves to the sun towards the east. Shamash. This is worship of the god Shamash. No biggie. Shamash was the god who had all the characteristics of Yahweh, who was warrior god, sun god, god of the elements. Easy comparison there. So I could see why they would be doing that. Then he said to me, have you seen this, O mortal? It is not bad enough for the house of Judah commits the abominations done here. Just fill the land with violence and provoke my anger still further. See what they are putting the branch into their nose. Wherefore I will act my wrath, and my eye will not spare, nor will I have pity. Blah blah blah. Well, so all these abominations that are going on existed before because it's heavily saturated with ancient Near Eastern icons, motifs, and imagery. And even before all this, you had the Asherah statue in the Temple of Solomon all the way up to the Reformation of Josiah. So it was there for a long time. And Elijah, when he kills the prophets of Baal on the mountain after the contest between Yahweh and Baal, Yahweh wins. Elijah kills the prophets of Baal, but he allows the prophets of Asherah to remain. So, after saying that, you know, who's really practicing what, which is really interesting. So, let's see, what else does she talk about? Oh, she bounced around here. I think she went to, let me look. I get all mixed up. Ezekiel 13, 20 to 23. What were we on? We're on chapter 8. So we jump up to Ezekiel 13. This is where they go on about the false prophets. And the false prophets were basically the people running around. So some people say, well, you read some prophets like Hosea, who later on ended up prophesying, you know, peace. He had a positive outlook. And other prophets who were prophesying, oh, you know, you better pay attention, bad things are coming because we can feel it. They're kind of going against each other there, and this may have been the example. You have people, you know, because they have misled my people, saying peace when there is no peace, and because when the people build a wall, these prophets smear whitewash on it. So she's using the term pesher, which is taking prophecy, going line by line, applying it to everyday life, just like the Old Testament writers. It's beautiful when it's used because it can be used that way. They're metaphors, just like Dead Sea Scrolls, just like New Testament did, and just like many really good prophets do today. And it's amazing how they quickly picked up on that art. So here it is. So we're going to talk about certain things that were carried over from this. I have a lot of respect for Ezekiel, and I really feel upset that she would totally bash and totally massacre a text like this. And it really bothers me that people don't know enough background in order to talk about it in a positive way. So had she done it differently, I don't know, it might have worked. I don't know. I just don't like the term, you know, labeling everybody a witchcraft. After Salem witch trials, you know, it could get pretty bad, and that whole thing, I'm totally against all that stuff. So we're going to explore some things some magic stuff that Christians do today. So what I'm going to do is read a text from one of my favorite texts, the Golden Bough. And this is chapter 3, Sympathetic Magic, the Principles of Magic. Charms based on the law of similarity may be called homeopathic or imitative magic. Charms based on the law of contact may be called contagious magic. To denote the first of these branches of magic, the term homeopathic is perhaps preferable, for the alternative term, imitative or mimic, suggests, if it does not imply, a conscious agent who imitates, thereby limiting the scope of magic too narrowly. For the same principles which the magician applies in the practice of his art were implicably believed by him to regulate the operations of the inanimate nature. In other words, he tactfully assumes that the law of similarity and contact are of universal application and are not limited to human actions. In short, magic is a superstitious system of natural law as well as false guide of conduct, which is false science as well as an abortive art. Regarded as a system of natural law, that is, as a statement of rules which determine the sequence of events throughout the world, it may be called theoretical magic, regarded as a set of precepts which human beings observe in order to compass their ends. It may be called practical magic. At the same time, it is to be borne in mind that primitive magicians knows magic only on the practical side. He never analyzes the mental process on which his practice is based, never reflects on the abstract principles involved in his actions. So let's talk about some of this stuff. We get stuff like snake handling, we get stuff like praying over hankies and taking it to a person to be healed, we get stuff like, oh, I'm sick, anoint my head with oil. We wear necklaces of saints, we do all this stuff. And It's a carryover. So, this sweet lady has no idea on what we do today. It's the same thing. So, I don't know. It's kind of like the pot calling the kettle black. I think I said that right. But that's just my view of it, and I find this whole thing like extremely annoying. So hopefully I didn't bore anybody this time. Maybe it's a little more upbeat. But if you're gonna explain something, at least get the background so you can do it right, without massacring these beautiful writings. All right, talk to you later, YouTube.